I have to say that this got me thinking,
Yeah, yeah.
and it touched my heart
Uh-huh.
in a way that nothing did in a way that nothing did when I was thinking about dogs, pets, whatever.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everyone else.
Today
Today.
we have a new movie. It's called The Friend. It's a 2024 movie, and there are two main reasons why I picked up this movie. One is Bill Murray, and I guess that's enough to say. And the second one is the title of the movie, The Friend. Both Amy and myself value a lot real friendship and our very close friends. And both of us think that friendship is one of the most beautiful experiences a human being can have in this life.
Definitely.
So when I saw Bill Murray and The Friend, I said to myself,
That's worth checking out.
that's it. We have to. So let's go. So first question, did you like the movie?
You know, I guess by the time I got to the end, I would say I liked the movie. There were times along the way that it seemed, I was thinking, okay.
Mm-hmm. Where is this going?
Okay. But by the time it got to the end, I do feel like it is a nice movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say it's a very gentle movie. It's I might even say it's a bit slow. It's not a sort of movie that you sit down and, it holds, you're riveted to the screen the whole time.
Well, it gives you space to soak in, to think.
Space to think, to kind of relax and just enjoy the movie. I'm trying to think of what context I might choose to rewatch it.
Mm-hmm. Huh. That's a good question.
Because I feel like it would be one that I would be willing to rewatch.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that's such a complex story that you feel like, oh yeah, I really want to see that one again. But at the same time, it has a certain warmth and tenderness to it, which is, and I guess I would say kindness.
Well, I'll tell you. I guess I would rewatch this movie in a rare occasions when I feel like I can't watch something heavy. I tend towards more like watching something stupid, but I don't want to watch something stupid. So I would just relax and rewatch this movie and let my mind, knowing what happened already, knowing
the
my
story.
mind,
there is
looking at more details and think about more details.
Yeah, I guess I feel like it's a nice one. If I were going to rewatch it, I'd rewatch it with the intent of thinking more, reflecting more deeply on some of the messages that now, by the end of the movie, I feel like this is what it was bringing out. And that's how I feel about it as far as rewatching.
So there were should we talk about the scene? Well, Amy took some notes, some scenes and some should we talk about that first, or maybe just share the overall?
Because you were thinking more about the scenes, commenting on the scenes.
Okay, so the first
video editor's eye.
The first scene that stood out to me was somewhere, I guess, around middle of the movie. It's a, and I'm talking about now the video itself. it's a scene where Iris is walking with Apollo, and she is approaching, I guess it was Walter's house, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I've never been to New York, but somehow those few seconds there, when I saw,
he said out loud as we were watching, he said out loud, he said, "That is so New York." And I turned to him and said, "Oh, really?"
I've never been
I've
there.
never been there.
So of course, if I say that's so New York, I mean the picture that's in my mind, and that is the result of all the movies that I've watched.
Okay.
And it was New York City there.
Okay.
So maybe somebody from New York can tell us,
chime in and
or
say,
somebody
is
who
this really,
who is familiar
sort of,
with a city.
Yeah. Yeah, if you know New York, you can say, "Do you have this right? Is your
I'm just
imagination correct or not?"
I'm curious. And then there are two moments.
Well, before we get into that, we should probably talk about, what sort of message did we get from, because that's what those quotes really come to is. So, as I said, there were points along the movie. Really? Okay. I have to say, I had this thought in my mind. This seems like such an American movie. It's so devoted to an animal. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. It's just something that, as I have gotten to know other parts of the world and understand how people in other parts of the world live and think, it's because we're so comfortable here in America. We can afford to indulge our attachment to animals in ways that people around the world very often can't.
But the question is this
something about the animal so much? Well, of course, it's centered around the story of this dog. And, there were scenes where everybody is just all, "Oh," about the dog. And I was like, okay, fine. But it almost felt like too much sometimes. But I feel like in the end, as I said, by the time I got to the end of the movie, I started to get a little bit more balanced perspective.
Well, two questions. You mentioned about the attachment that exists here in this country for pets. So the question is, should it be this way, or is it an over exaggerated way of relating to a pet?
Well, if you start talking about that, we're going to have a whole war on the channel, because there are going to be people who say it's too much, and there are going to be people who say absolutely.
Well, I guess yes, of course, and it's okay, and I don't think we'll have a war. But as an European, I shouldn't say this, because one of my brothers had a dog for the dog's entire life, which was about 16, 17 years. And he was so devoted to the dog, just like a real, genuine, 100% American guy. He was like, and I'm not going to get into any details, but anyway, the thing is that watching them, because I never had this idea in my mind, but watching them over the years, I could see how this relationship changed my brother in the better. And I can say that in some aspects of his life, the change was really dramatical. It was, I was like, what? Really? I never believed that he will change in this or that. And it was all about the dog, because look, he was not married, no kids, nothing. It was just himself and the dog for all these years. He traveled outside the country, traveled to Europe. The dog was with him. Whenever he was hitchhiking, hey, I'm with the dog. If you're comfortable with the dog, it's okay. If no, I walk, but I'm not going to leave my dog behind. That sort of attachment. And so now watching this movie. So that got me thinking.
Yes.
So back to the original question. Is this attachment, is this really, it should be like this or not? Now here's one thing, and I'm coming to the first line that you wrote there, where I guess it was Iris who said, when she was thinking and they were tossing back and forth this idea that Walter committed suicide, and she was a bit upset, and she said,
dogs don't commit suicide. They don't weep.
Okay, dogs don't commit suicide. Okay, my question is why? Why? I don't think they're able to. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I don't think they can just throw themselves in front of a car for the purpose of, because it's the instinct. I don't know. But in my mind they cannot. And so this opened the door in my mind, and so many thoughts flooded in, like, okay, so you, the owner, you can open that door and go out and leave. But the pet, which is your friend, which is part of your family now, they cannot. They can't do this. So they cannot even follow you. You know, sometimes you have stories, you have real events when a spouse or a lover commits suicide, the other one cannot live, and they commit suicide. You just say, okay, I'm done. I can't. So I'm just going to follow her or him to whatever place, or to whatever nothingness or whatever, but I can't. And they have this choice at hand.
A human being can make the choice to take an action,
not
to remove their life. But a dog doesn't. And the stories we know of dogs are dogs who have lost their master, their companion.
And they stay there at the grave.
And they remain devoted by staying at a certain place or waiting somewhere for a return. And
so this brings me to another interesting scene, which is the imaginary conversation between Iris and Walter.
Yes.
And she's arguing with him, you shouldn't have done that. You didn't think about us. And he was trying to, talk himself out of this situation now. And then it was one point where he broke. When she said,
Apollo was devoted to you. Your best friend, the center of his world, and you left him alone in the house with your body. He scratched at the door. He was listening the whole time as your life was draining away.
In other words, connecting the two, right? You're just pushing this friend, which happened to be a dog, out. You left, and this friend doesn't have the chance, the opportunity to follow you if they wish to do so. I have to say that this got me thinking.
Yeah.
And it touched my heart in a way that nothing did when I was thinking about dogs, pets, whatever. In other words, I was thinking, okay, so if I have a pet, and we have a cat, and this cat, man, is following me everywhere. It behaves like a dog.
This cat is like a dog.
Yeah, it behaves like... So anyway, so the idea then, I thought about it, and I said, that's interesting. That adds so much responsibility on the owners of the pet. You brought this pet into a relationship with you, because it's probably most of the times it's the humans.
It's the human who makes the choice to bring an animal into their life.
And then they started, they grew into...
And there is the capacity in on both sides for an incredibly deep attachment to develop.
Yeah, and so you got the dog or the pet to like you, to love you, to be devoted to you, to start having experiences, and so on and so forth. And then if, like Walter left, and the dog got stuck. And and basically the whole movie is about the tragedy of this friend who got stuck out of the room, and he cannot get in the room where his friend is.
Right.
That's the movie.
So the movie is kind of okay. It's talking about friendship, and the incredibly different ways in which we can build bonds of friendship, not just person to person, but person to animal and animal to person, so forth. But it's about the responsibility to not abuse your friend, to not misuse your friend. And it's done, as I said, it's a very gentle movie. It's not some dramatic, intense, emotional experience. And
it just as we said, it leaves you room to think and to absorb.
But and I think that it's intentional for it to be between a dog and a human. I mean, they could have set between two humans, but it highlights this much more strongly to have it between a human and an animal. This bond of friendship, and the incredibly the selfishness and the abusiveness of making a choice for yourself, which forces your friend who has developed, and you have allowed to develop, an incredibly deep bond and reliance on you. And that's one of those unthinkable things. Would you do this to a friend that you care about? Would you? Should you? And
now one other interesting aspect in this relationship between the human being and the animal, in this case a dog, is that sometimes, and this is one of the points that the movie is making, it can come from the dog, because Iris and Apollo, she said, but I don't like dogs and I don't have room. And she was like, no, I know. Yes. And look, now I'm in this big, deep trouble. They will evict me. I cannot afford that. Whatever. And the movie is emphasizing, no, she cannot. And then this is the apartment where her father lives. She is just a no. And she goes as far as deciding, okay, I have to take Apollo out.
Well, she's been trying to do this from the start.
Yeah, but then that's it. She puts him in the car. They're driving out, but Apollo already had a place in her
worked her
heart.
Way worked his way into her heart.
And so her mind was spinning. And when she saw that gentleman entering the gas station with a dog, and
with
she saw
dog.
And she saw the
sign that says
there
absolutely
saying,
no pets allowed. But then
she got this idea. So she was trying. Why? Because Apollo was already in her heart.
Yeah.
But she wasn't the person who initiated the friendship and the love and the affection.
Well, this was more because she was doing this out of a sense of responsibility for Walter, who was her friend.
Yes.
It was her way of respecting and caring for a friendship.
Yeah. And so
but it was not for the dog. It was not the friendship was not towards the dog itself.
Yes. But it came somehow from the dog's part, and she
coming back to your question of is this good to have these kinds of relationships with animals? Is this right? Is this normal?
I'm not saying good. I'm saying is this something over exaggerated or not?
Is it an extreme response or whatever?
I guess, go ahead.
But I think this partly answers your question, because the fact is, most times, we don't plan a friendship. We don't plan to develop a friendship.
Yes.
Friendship finds us, and it can find us in the most unexpected ways, and it's perfectly natural for friendship to be found in an animal when you didn't even expect it. And you might not even like dogs. You might say, Now, I'm not a dog person. I don't like dogs, whatever.
And it's so big and my apartment is so small.
You might even say, I believe animals need to be kept outside. My home is not for animals. What do you do when friendship finds you?
Yes. Yeah.
And
So to this question, is it over exaggerated or not? At this point in my life, I would say it depends. It depends.
You're growing. You're growing.
It might be, and I'm sure that this happened many times. It might be the best thing.
It very often is.
Happening to a person. Okay. Now, moving on to the other idea that the movie, of course, is bringing in front of us, and that is about suicide in this context of human relationships and friendships. And oh boy, I had to laugh at that line. The more suicidal people are out there, the less suicidal people are. It's kind of dark. It's bad, but anyway.
Dark humor, but
yeah, dark humor. But then coming to this, right, and to friendship in general, not only to the dog, it's still, even if when somebody commits suicide, and I'm not saying this applies 100% to all the cases. I'm just saying, generally speaking, when somebody commits suicide and they leave their friends, family, whatever, lovers behind, if they're human beings, of course, they can follow. But I want to say this because I don't want to be misunderstood. Hey, it's wrong towards a dog because the dog cannot follow, but it's okay towards a human being because a human being can follow.
No, I don't think you're saying that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. No, it's not, because you are, in a way, you are putting your friend in a position of choosing. Should I, in a position of choosing, in a position that nobody should find themselves in. Should I remain here alone without my friend, or should I end up my life because I feel like my world fell apart? And it's not right. I don't think it's okay to put anyone in this position.
Yes, well, the interesting thing is that this movie is set with very mature, educated people. This is not
even artists.
Artists, writers, intellectuals. These are academics. These are educated people who think deeply about life and the things they do. And this whole thing is set in that context, which means it's not the current epidemic of young suicidal impulses and depression and all of that that's developed in this modern technology era. This is something which was thought carefully, and you see the people in dealing with the aftermath, they're all dealing in a very mature, adult way, and their responses are educated and thoughtful,
decent, controlled.
Yes, and so it puts a particular slant on the whole thing, and also the fact that the person who committed suicide was older. In other words, he was towards the end of his life anyway. He could have just as easily died naturally at that age. So it's not like a death at that age is unexpected. And so it kind of slants the discussion about suicide in a particular direction and makes you think, okay, if someone is towards the end of their life and they feel like they've had enough of life already, is it fair for them to just choose to depart this life?
Or you can look at it from another angle and say, hey, couldn't you have just waited a little longer just for our sake and not do it like this, you know?
And there's the acknowledgement that we don't expect people to live forever.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting, it makes sure that the way it's set makes it so that we don't come to immediate cut and dried one size fits all answers. And I think that that's one thing that this movie does is, okay, it makes you start discussing this idea of suicide, but at the same time it doesn't make you conclude that there is only one clear-cut answer for every situation.
Yeah. Yes.
Now, but back to this friendship thing, because this is where I found the movie to be really beautiful. And that is developing from this idea that the dog found his way into her heart and the friendship developed. As I said, this movie is centered around the dog. The dog is the friend. And first, there was the friendship with Walter. Now Walter is gone. Now there is Iris. And unexpectedly, against her will, she finds herself not only with the dog as her friend, but her becoming the dog's friend. And towards the end of the movie, she finds herself, she doesn't even realize what has happened to herself for a while. But as she's writing about this whole experience, she said something which I found so special and beautiful.
Not to have known you as a frisky young dog, to have missed your entire puppyhood. I don't feel just sad, I feel cheated.
Talking about what you do when you find yourself so close and tender towards your friend and the dog, and he becomes such a big part of your life and means so much. He becomes your world. And suddenly, I wish I knew you before I knew you. I wish I knew how you grew up. I wish I had been able to see your youth, the time in your life when you were not slow and older. I wish I had been there. And she said this line, I don't feel just sad, I feel cheated. And I thought, what a beautiful expression of how it is when you become so attached to somebody and they mean so much to you that you crave to know more of them. Not because they're withholding or not because you are not as close as you wish to be.
Why didn't I get to know you
earlier? Why didn't I get to know you sooner? Yes. Why didn't I get to share more of your life with you? Why didn't we get to see share this whole life together? Why couldn't I? And I don't feel just sad. I feel cheated. I loved that line. I truly did. And
I guess we know that feeling, don't we?
And that was the moment at which, as I said, it was towards the end of the movie. I kind of came around to be okay with the way that some of the scenes felt a little bit, shall I say, sappy, overdone. Not because I'm against affection and friendship and relationships with animals, but again, it just felt that way watching the movie. But then I got to that point and realized this whole movie is, while it is about the dog is the friend, it is also about any friend and all friends.
Of course.
Whether it's a human or an animal or however it is that we find friendship in this life, it is about the incredible, beautiful bond and relationship that comes from having a true friend. And it's about the bond. It's not about what you find in that friend. It's about the bond of friendship. And I think that's another reason that the choice was made for it to be between an animal and a person. Because yes, we all know that there can be this bond between animal and person. And it takes away the idea of, okay, does this friend, not animal, does this friend, meet your intellectual needs or whatever. No, it's simply about friendship, and it helps to take away some of the extra stuff that can sometimes come with a friend, which is wonderful, but still, it is purely about the bond of friendship and the beautiful experience that is, whether it be animal or human. And so that's the moment at which I suddenly felt, I think this is a sweet movie.
Yeah, and there's one little detail that was special for me, and you'll understand why I say that. It's because this is an American movie, and this American movie doesn't overuse or misuse the word friend. And so I was happy to see this movie, that this movie made justice to the. Anyway, so I guess these are our candid thoughts.
And it's so interesting as I'm thinking about us sitting here. We spent a lot of time talking about this movie today, and I guess it's a testament to the value of the movie that it has taken us this much time to discuss and kind of unravel and work our way through what it means.
Look,
and how it affected us, because it did affect us both.
Yes,
it did. And
but on the other hand, you need to understand that we will continue to talk about it. We always do whenever we watch a movie. We could sit down and continue to talk about it, but of course I always have to tell him, just remember, we have to keep it in a certain reasonable amount of time, this video that we're making, because there's so many ideas, and then of course there are things that we cannot say on camera because there are things about us, very personal, that are connected to whatever ideas or scenes we see in a movie, and I'm sure it happens to you too. But this was a beautiful movie, a sweet, beautiful movie.
It was.
We would really like to know what you think and how this movie impacted you. If maybe share an experience or two, but at least
I would be interested to hear your thoughts on this
or two. Great movie. Bill Murray was great, of course, and
Apollo was good too. Let's give credit to the animal.
Yes.
Really, I have to say, what a beautiful creature.
Yes. And yeah, this was The Friend, and so dear community and my friend, we'll see you next time.